Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cause and Effect, a show about Vetes. Today, we are going to unlock the secret of winning the EC and show you how you can do it. Kinda. We're gonna have an EC specials anyway. And first, we're going to talk about the tournament in general, and then a little bit about the winning decks. At length, which is girls, and in the second part we are going to analyze the finals, which Isaac was the victor of. And great, many kudos to him will be given throughout the shows. Yeah, and then a little bit later on, we're also going to talk about how to strategize in a final to be able to win it. So it's going to be a great show and lots of fun, and we're going to talk a lot about the EC, so stay tuned. But at first, I would like to introduce my two beautiful co-hosts, my Robins, as you can say, Isak Esbjörnsson Bjärmark and Adam Esbjörnsson. Hello, guys.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Great. Obviously, I'm kind of satisfied.
You're doing a bit better than any of us now.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah.
You're still riding your EC victory high.
Yeah, I'm totally not sure if it's ever even started yet. It hasn't sunk in fully yet. But soon, I will be running the streets of Gothenburg screaming joyously.
Very humble of you not to have the trophy in the picture. I thought you were going to have it behind you the entire show.
Instead of his face, we see only the trophy.
Yeah.
That would be vulgar, but also awesome.
So, yeah. How was the tournament, so to speak? Adam, you can maybe take the first turn. How was it in general?
All the 3 days? Or?
Yeah, just your impressions. The third time.
I really liked it. It was good traveling there. The hotel was great. The venue was really close by, and it had passable air conditioning. The organization was good, and it had a good atmosphere. It felt relaxed, but still not too relaxed in a way that makes people extremely drunk and obnoxious. It struck a really good balance of everything, and it was one of the more enjoyable ECs I've been to.
Okay, Isaac.
Yeah, I agree. And the part of not having people getting too drunk and be obnoxious is... yeah, that's really great that it didn't happen this year. But the atmosphere, awesome, good venue, easy access to casual gaming tables. There were a lot of people willing to trade, just hang around, chatting. It was great. And really close by there was this awesome, like, Hungarian cuisine pub. So I ate a lot of pork and mostly no vegetables at all. So
yeah,
Well,
I have had like a munchies for vegetables. Poor Hungarian people, only mashed potatoes and pork. It's like
I'm sure you actually can get vegetables if you want to. But the food is really cheap as well. That was nice too.
yes.
Like half of what you'd pay in Sweden for equivalent meal.
Okay. Well, kudos to Hungary for being awesome then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Milan and sorry, I don't remember
Tibor's
name.
Yeah.
Really well executed EC.
Yeah. So
Okay.
huge thanks to the guys or the guy. Awesome. And Anders, how has life been in Sweden?
It's been good. Been keeping busy, and actually managed to play some cards, our local games, and have a good laugh or two. So.
Did you follow the EC during?
Yeah, I did really closely. We had a wonderful. The Swedes had a wonderful reporter that reported on Facebook, Marcus, which updated frequently, and other users as well. So I was rooting for you guys really hard, and it paid off.
Yeah, that's really cool. Cool thing Marcus did. You can go to the Stockholm Jihad blog if you want to see what he did. But he did that on Facebook, like live feeding what was going on, high and low, like
Yeah.
basically I'm ill or a guy got a game win. Just it's everything. So
Yeah.
that's
Yes. Yeah. Everything from casual gaming to real tournaments.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you guys want to do this. Whether you want to take it separate days or just talk about day 1 or 2, or
we could.
I played the same deck all 3 days, so they're pretty much interchangeable for me.
okay. Well, Isaac, do you have any preference? Do you
No.
want to
No.
talk about the last chance? You just want to talk about day 2 final?
I want Adam to start.
Yes. Adam, so what did you play, and why did you decide to play the same deck all 3 tournaments?
It's the best deck, obviously.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Yep, I played this deck, one we see here. It's Weenie Auspex with Wargul's deck. It's heavily influenced by Eric Torstenson's deck, but I've changed, I don't know how many cards. Maybe 8 cards or something.
Okay.
And the reason I chose this deck is that this deck more or less can't be killed. I think the Wargulls are really good rush defense, and Weenie Auspex can't be killed by bleeding. So yeah, you need this cross saber votes or lots of stealth voting that can survive Wargull rushes. So it's really hard to kill this deck. And I felt in a situation where it's hard to realize what other people are playing. A good start is to be unkillable, and then you figure out how to win. Like in the meantime, obviously the big drawback of an unkillable deck is that it's easy to time out with it, and it really haunted me during the entire 3 days of the EC. I could possibly have gotten 3 more game wins if I had 30 more minutes.
Yeah.
So, well, obviously that's a drawback of a defensive deck.
So how did you do?
Yeah, first question: how many times did you get ousted in the 9 games you played? Correct, 9 games.
9 games, yeah.
Yeah, and how many times did you get ousted?
I got ousted twice in 9 games.
So that's pretty resilient.
Yeah, once was by a Lutz obfuscate voter, which got well,
Which is the perfect counterpart.
yeah, they DI'd my first trap. They rescued cross table and helped the vote push with vote captivation, so that had help as well.
They played good.
Yeah, they they wanted me dead, so
Yeah.
I died. And the other was in the duel with Tremere, Torador, Benoit, who played in the finals, Torador and Tribute Breed Boon. I got into the duel with that deck, and I didn't manage to rush it, so I didn't survive it. So that's 2 of the ways you can kill the deck. But the other ones I either won or set at the table by timeout.
Okay, so how did you do overall?
I had, well, in total I got 4 game wins and 17.5 points.
In
All 3 tournaments. But yeah, I got 7th place in last chance. I got 8th place in day 1, and I got 11th place for like the day 2, the entire event. So 11th place, and I'm really happy with it. Of course, it's not as good as 1st place, but I'm gonna take what I can get.
It's better than no place.
Basically just getting to day 2 in the EC is an astonishing
Accomplishment.
accomplishment. That's the word. It should be pointed out, being top 40 at the EC, and this particular EC were over 200 visitors. It's a huge deal. Should not be mocked. Though it's better to win.
Yes, you know.
Yeah. So, did you meet any interesting decks, Adam?
Yes, I did.
That was a leading question. We actually prepared something.
What? We do?
I don't know, man. Go on. I'm sorry.
Yes. Should I take all of them? Well, I'll go through them.
Yeah, just
quickly.
go through one. We'll see how it feels.
Well, the one that I felt was the most interesting from a competitive standpoint, like that I would like to try as well, is Chabagagus, who played a Tremere with the Tremere disciplines, dominate thaumaturgy, Auspex tap lead deck, and he used this card, Arch Traumatic Essence, to tap lead. Obviously with Pentix and Misdirections as well. And also with the Revelations.
Yeah.
Tap lead deck with the Trimmer. And this card I haven't seen used for tap leading, and it's actually really good because getting 1 stealth at a tap action at inferior Auspex is really good. It doesn't cost anything and it's stealth.
Seems a little bit like you wouldn't have actions enough to do both them and Revelations. How did it work out for him? Or her?
Well, I don't think he ever played Art's Traumatic Essence and Revelations in the same turn. I think it's more of like either or.
Yeah.
Maybe if you think he plays with lots of wakes, it's better to play Revelations. But if he plays no wakes, it's better to play Art's Traumatic Essence or something like that.
The one thing I like here, just on the top of my head hearing about it, is that Superior Mirror Walk works really well with tap lead. So even if they block the action, they don't get to cycle any cards, and they don't stay untapped through Cat's Guidance or some such.
Yeah. And especially since not everyone in a crypt will have Superior Thaumaturgy. You can use the inferior Auspex guys to use this action, or you can use Mirror Walk to tap lead with other guys. So in that way, your entire crypt becomes a tap lead crypt instead of just.
How many? Yeah. I'm sorry. How many minions did he manage to bring out?
4 guys, I think. But he also had the ally Hexaped.
Okay.
Also, how to win the Swedish
Swedish
Swedish nationals. But basically was just a governs superior staircase thing going on.
Yeah, tap lead deck.
Ladder, I should say in English, I think. Staircase sounds weird.
Staircase. You can be a staircase.
Yeah, but I also saw a Dominate Protein deck, which I kind of feel is a holy grail of deck building. Dominate Protein does not have a good crypt, but I saw it played and it kind of intrigued me. It was kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, what
I faced the same guy with the same deck, though he didn't perform that well at our table.
Okay, well, what was the secret behind this deck that made it work on him?
The card, as we say in Sweden, Form of Mist, is extremely powerful.
Yeah, it's the card.
Yeah, this is like the ultimate action modifier. It's stealth, it's combat ends, and it's
tap.
It's tap, and completely screws over
Everyone.
Second tradition as well as Speak with Spirits.
Yeah.
So
Savage Way, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, exactly. And combining the ultimate action modifier with the ultimate discipline, you get the ultimate deck, maybe. I don't know.
Well, that's probably why it's, I think, LSJ been very reluctant to build like obvious crypts with Superior Protein and Superior Dominate.
Yeah, it's very likely.
So, which guys were featured in the deck? That's my question.
Eric Cressida, as well as Here they are. Giovanni Del Giorgio is the other 2 big caps, and there's a 7 cap as well. And beyond that, I think he played mostly Dominate vampires, because the protein Form of Mist is a tap lead action.
Yeah.
You can bleed with your protein guys first, and then your prey will be tapped, and then you can bleed without protein for the remainder of the guys.
So why is it better than Stanislava?
It's lower cap. Stanislava more or less requires Cryptic Acceleration, I feel. 8 caps can be played without Cryptic Acceleration.
And when you take a look at that crypt, the old one, there's basically only Stanislava and Ileana who has both superior. Yeah, but a lot of other guys in the crypt is really nice and cute, but a lot of them are inferior dominate. So we have a hard time doing that superior govern ladder with efficiency. So it more or less ends up with being a star deck revolving around Stanislava and using Ileana as a sidekick, more or less.
Yeah.
But Stanislava is brilliant in other ways. Like, allies not being able to block is pretty strong.
Yeah, it's very likely Stanislava deck is a better deck than the Protein Dominate, but I find this very, very interesting just because I've thought about it, but I've never tried it and I've never seen it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Anything more that caught your eye or got your gears going?
I met this deck by Peter Botosh. I also met a deck, I think it was a Polish guy, I might have this wrong. If so, I'm so sorry in advance. A deck featuring Etrius and Matthias. And just general big cap shenanigans. Was minion tap, renewed vigor, mind rape, some votes, a lot of bounces. But they have nice synergy. Spirit Marionette being dominate bleed, both have Auspex, and I have an easy time seeing myself playing Cavalier together with these guys.
Yeah.
So there's some stuff going on. It's just I didn't face anything that was like, oh my god, that's a cool deck. But I faced some that were like, oh, this is a good deck. This was the most interesting ones.
Okay.
It's really fun to see, and from this perspective, like sitting here in this studio of mine, I think it's great that there's a lot of archetypes going on in the EC. They're less experimental in terms of deck building and more standard, solid, good decks, which results in solid, really good games, which hasn't that much to do with, oh, I got this really wacky deck as my Predator and I got an easy win. It's more and more going towards, I actually do have to play like a god to win. Because every deck I meet is an archetype, and that archetype is tried and true and very strong. So I met a lot of those. But obviously, there's still some wacky ideas out there going about during the EC. Which you should leave at home during the EC.
You can play it in casual games.
Yes.
To confuse.
To confuse your friends. Yeah, at least for day 1 and day 2, leave wacky decks at home. Try them out during the LCQ if you're already qualified and such, I'd say. Anyways, that was the most interesting, and as Adam has brought up, a Gift of Sleep is pretty strong together with Citrus as well.
Pretty strong.
Yep. That was the coolest deck I think I saw. And obviously the deck that Thiago played in the finals I think is kind of sweet. It's starting to get more and more standard to play like a Ventru grinder, but with ordinary Ventrus, and use parry shifts.
Yeah.
And less block, obviously, because you don't have Auspex. And that crypt is really neat, because it's so fortitude heavy.
Yeah.
So it works really well. So that also is a cool deck.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I don't know. Should we go on or? Yeah.
You're the host. Tell me.
Just should we talk about your deck now and your experience?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So first, I mean, how did you get through day 1? Was it hard?
Yeah, it's day 1. It was really tough. My first game was a really fast game. I think we were down.
Just you played the same deck day 1 as
Yeah. That's true. I should be stated.
Yeah.
I played the exact same deck. I didn't change one bit of it. I managed to get. I don't want to overstep here. I think I got one. I don't remember. I got 1 and something. One game win 5 maybe, 5.5 VPs. Day 1. The one game where I won, I actually met Tomasz. That's the Toreador block deck. That's my Predator in the finals. So I met him during day 1, and he also played the exact same deck as he did. I think it was the exact same deck. Anyways, more or less the same deck. And I met him, and I managed to win the game against him.
And I spectated this game, and I think it illustrates something that's really interesting with the duel, with the deck you played, is how powerful the girls will find deck is against the block deck in the heads up. Because normally you'll have in the heads up with the block deck, you're gonna be like, oh shit, this is going to go to you know.
Yeah.
But the girls will find, if you manage to shuffle in 10 more stealth cards in your deck, you're pretty much set, and you're gonna win the duel. And that's like, it's extremely rare. And even against the deck that Thomas played, who has both seconds, Quick Insight, Enhanced Senses, and Eyes of Argus,
Yeah.
you can get like, it's silly how much stealth you can get.
Yeah.
But seeing how Asher Tablet works, and when you shuffle in that many stealth cards, you can actually manage. And I think that's like, it illustrates a really big power of the deck that Isaac play.
Yeah, we're going to go into length more about the girls deck and the strengths of it a little bit later on. So we'll come back to that.
Yeah, so that's the game I managed to win. So I finished something like 17th or 19th in day 1, and got to day 2, and decided during that night, kind of late, and being high off Randall's victory, the other Swedish player who won.
Kudos to Randall, of course.
Yeah. Really cool. He managed to win the day 1, which is awesome for him and awesome for Team Sweden. It was really great. But off that high, I were pondering adding, removing the Majesty stuff from this deck and making Mental Maze instead, because most combat I've faced or seen were rush combat, were only a few block decks, or rather, as Adam pointed out, block decks is not a problem.
Yeah.
It's fine. But then I figured out that probably will suck balls, because like Xenia the Claw can't really play Mental Maze, and then everything will be really, really bad. And I need to change from having Gardogs and Red's Warning to Eluding the Arms of Morpheus and blah blah blah. So I ended up just, never mind, I'll play the exact same deck, which in retrospect was a good choice, I think.
Okay.
I managed to win my first table, 1-4. It was one of those tables that just was kinda easy. It wasn't like easy stealing candy from a child, but kinda easy. It wasn't too many hard decisions to make. I just, so long as I played standard, I'd managed, and I played standard, so I managed to take the 1-4. At one point, it looked like it might maybe end up 1-3. Getting the cross table guy getting 2 points, but then there was a lot of like DI and DI2 and some delaying tactics on a 1 VP each deal that didn't work. That 1 VP each deal, so it probably ended up working in my favor, because then he didn't get the momentum, but I could still keep on going.
But was there too much greed for the VPs that people didn't want other people to oust just because, or?
No, the DIs were from both the two players that we dealed to oust. So those two used their cards they had to defend themselves,
Okay.
which is probably a good for them.
Okay, but yeah.
Then I ended up in a table where I faced 4 rush decks, failed horribly and miserably. I got ousted. Like literally 4 rush decks, and one of them Weenie DBR, cross table rusts, grave robbed my Cybele before I got to delane her and stuff like that. It was a nightmare. But
do you think 3 Mental Maze would have helped you in that game? It was rhetorical.
If my Majesties would have been Mental Mazes, which actually helped, because I had 2 or 3 Majesties, but it was Watenda's special that got me.
Oh yeah, she's really cool.
Which deck was it that won that game?
It was timed out with 2.5 VPs to my Predator, which were playing some sort of Nana Animalism rush deck.
Okay.
Yeah, and the third game was really, it was tense. It was one of the really hard games. My Predator were playing some high cap blockish Smiths deck. Martin Schumacher, which one of the best German players, really good Predator. And I had faced him during day 1 as well, so I know how difficult he is to play. He's good with the table talk and good with making people play faster, because he's playing block decks or blockish decks all the time.
Okay.
But my prey were playing Eurobruja with both Tio Bell and Beast. But I, through like Jake, some table talking, Unleash Fury and some other stuff, like Asher Tablets for all stealth cards, again and again and again. I managed to get 1.5 from that table, and it timed out
Yeah.
with me getting the only VP. So that made me go get 5.5. And I was really unsure. I was thinking with that point total, I thought, oh, I might end up 6th or 5th or somewhere around that area. But to my surprise and to a lot of people's surprise, I ended up 2nd seed with that score.
There was really a few game wins that day.
Out of 24 games, there were 9 game wins.
Do you have any idea why?
I think it's because the 40 people who go to day 2 are getting more equal in their skill level. So the more equality there is between decks, like I said, the thing with more and more archetypes around, and more equality in skill between the players, makes tables make it a lot harder to get the game win, because everybody will pick a deck that have a great survivability. As Adam stated, pick a deck that can stay alive. As long as you can stay alive, you can try to figure out the rest.
But if every 5 players choose decks like that,
Yeah.
it's really hard to get a game win off at the game.
Yeah, and all of these weren't just timeouts. There were some, I think, a lot of table splits, like 2-2-1s, that kind of table splits. So they actually play them out, but the distribution of VPs were so even because the skill were so even. So I really think this isn't a proof that the Vitas community is getting more and more boring and as say, worse. I think it is actually a proof that the Vitas community is getting a lot better, because a lot harder to get game wins.
I think it's possible to make a kind of meta-analysis, because I felt like the meta this EC was different from last 2 or 3, maybe. I'm not gonna say exactly which number, but at least there were more defensive decks in this tournament, I felt like. Because last year there was a lot of rush combat, and as well as the ones who weren't rushing were playing aggressive bleed decks. And I think the rush combat and aggressive bleed decks, they kill preys and they die themselves a bit easier than the defensive decks, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think the meta made it more likely to have a 5-player game or a 4-player game with everyone's playing defensive, and then you time out, of course. So I think also it's a bit of a meta shift, and that's heavily affected by which country you're in, probably. Because Hungary was going to have a lot more places in the Hungarian EC, obviously, because there's so many more. And it's the same with the Polish or the French when it's in France, or what have you. So I feel like it's gonna change from year to year every single time, the meta and also how many game wins there are.
Yeah, and which archetypes at the moment are being popular to play.
Yeah.
But I actually do see that as a proof that the competition between decks and players on day 2 is getting a lot more even, and that's the reason why we see no person with 2 game wins. We have seen that, I think, every year before this, and we see very few game wins overall.
Yeah. And something that's really interesting was that there was no sweeps at all.
Day 2?
From the statistics of Extralas Bog, Vitas 1. And I think that's really good, because a sweep should never happen. It's actually something that should be theoretically impossible, because just because of how interaction works in Vitas, someone's gonna get strong from someone else being weak, or vice versa, and then people will die. So it just shouldn't be just one player having the opportunity to host. So no 5-point game wins, I think that's really good. That's a good sign. That's one of the more definitive indications of equal skill at a tournament.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about the deck that took you to the final. We've talked about it a lot, talked around it a lot, and now we're going to have a little bit more analysis of the deck, which is Girls Will Find.
Inner Sleaze.
Inner Sleaze.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So how explain for us unknowing what we are looking at and how to play it.
Okay, so we start off with the crypt, and this is where it's non-intuitive, I'd say. Because you have three parts of the crypt, one being Axinia the Clow, one being Cybele, and the other third being, in this case, three inner circles and one Lucian the Perfect, but they can might as well be four inner circles, so let's just call them the inner circles.
Yeah.
So you have
Yep.
Axinia with the ability to bounce, and the one thing she shares with the others is presence, which is the main bleed disciplines. But she also shares thaumaturgy and animalism with Cybele, which is key, I'd say, or at least very, very important.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's because Axinia the Clow is your main defense in this deck. You have one bleed each turn, and that's each player, one bounce, I mean, each player's turn. And that's a lot, especially considering you have 44 masters in your deck, and you have a lot of dead masters. After you done your initial liquidations, all liquidations are waste. Same with the information highway, at a certain point start being not that important. You probably, in the beginning, don't want to play your Asher tablets, you rather bounce with them. At one point, you don't want to use a Silas Valley, etc. So you have a you have fuel to bounce with her. And then you have the other part, which is Cybele, which is a bleed vampire, but the most important part being the additional master phase action, which is also very, very important, considering there's 44 masters, and the masters being the core when it comes to the deck, when it comes to surviving, especially, but also bringing out new guys, and bring out bloating, which leads to you surviving by having pool and by using Axinia the Cloud special, and then you have that additional pool to gain additional vampires. So you bring out Axinia first, then you bring up Cybele, and then after that you start bringing up Inner Circle. That's the standard game. But if you know what your predator is playing, you might skip Axinia. So if your predator is playing a vote deck and don't have any bounces himself or herself, it's a waste of pool actually to bring out Axinia.
Okay.
Especially if it's the case is that your prey also plays something that can block, because she's a very low stealth vampire. You have Perfect Paragon, you have Cloak the Gathering, you have Mirror Walk, and that's very few stealth cards for her.
Okay.
So that's the reasoning behind the crypt. Should I go on, or?
Yeah, no, go on. I have nothing to.
So you start
Adam,
off.
do you have anything?
Yeah. How do you feel about, because one of the semi-popular idea is to bring out Axinia and then Golconda her and make her worthwhile by Golconda. How do you plead?
A lot of times I end up Golcondaing her because oh shit, and that's
because it was like you reactively decide this was a bad choice. I shouldn't have never have brought her up and you Golconda her.
No. It's like it's my turn. I'm down to 4 pool and there's Dominate behind me, and well, if you got to, you got to. Or if you have some heavy voters, if the situation requires it, then I go ahead and go Golconda her. But it's not like, oh, I'll just take that back and start over. It's like, you need to have a plan for her if you bring her out. And most of the time, it's basically, I don't know what my predator is playing. It could be Stanislava. If it's Stanislava, it's probably a very good idea to have Axinia ready to bounce. Because getting to bounce bleeds for 8 each turn is awesome.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the crypt. Now the real trick is how being able to manage that crypt. So what do you do?
So I just should state something about the non-master part. First you have the reaction package, which Guard Dog's Rat's Warning works really well with Axinia Special. Allows you to bounce.
Yeah.
So you can take actions and still be able to bounce. And Lost in Translation is just to have that extra bounce. Either in case of someone launches against you, you can bounce 2 bleeds and still survive. Or if you want to play a game without Axinia for some reason, you have 1 or 2 bounces just in case you need them. Because the Rat's Warning and Guard Dogs also works with Cybele, so you will always have someone probably always have someone in play with animalism to be able to do that. The other part is basic stealth speed. You have presence speed cards, Unleash Hell's Fury for defense, and you have the action modifiers that's stealth and bleed for. So that's just basic stealth bleed, and the deck is a stealth bleed deck. Don't let anyone else tell you anything else. But the key is how to use your masters to get this going. And the first key is to play Crypt Acceleration. To get you guys into play fast, to be able to start bleeding fast, and also to be able to start defending fast.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, of course.
While doing all this, you play Liquidation for additional pool, but also to slim your library. So in a typical game, I do 3 to 4 Liquidation, that's 21 or 28 cards in the Ash Heap, plus my discard phase actions, which I use every single time, no exceptions.
Okay.
Now I need to take my breath.
And
then,
also, I
yeah,
think what you said about slimming the deck is one part, which is like, yeah, it's equally important as putting cards in your Ash Heap.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah,
have
there are 3 parts of Liquidation: gaining pool, putting cards in Ash Heap, and slimming your deck.
Yeah.
Because adding 13 cards with Asher Tablets is more powerful if you have no cards in your library than it is if you have 80 cards in your library. So it's a good part to have a smaller library as well when you do Asher Tablets.
Yeah, because then that one Asher Tablet set will have a bigger impact on your game.
Yeah.
And all the... so that's the Liquidation Asher Tablet combo, you have the Crypt Acceleration combo, then you have Villain. Because very few cards cost blood for you in this deck. Approximation, Loyalty, Elder Impersonation, and...
Majesty.
Air
Relation, Majesty.
Yeah.
So there are kind of few. So you don't need that much blood on your vampires. Usually, usually Villain Axinia down to 3, Cybele down to 5 because her bleed ability costs blood, and the Inner Circles to 3. That's the standard. If I desperately need more pool, I Villain harder. If there's no bleed, only combat, I will avoid villaining at all, using that blood on the vampires as combat defense.
Okay.
So it all depends on how much bleed or pool damaging stuff I have behind me.
Yeah.
And the rest of the masters are made for ousting, and that's the Pentex, Monastery of Shadows, Misdirection, and Blind Spot. They're made for ousting, making ousts easier.
Yeah.
And then you have Blood Gain. In this case, it's only the Coven and Jake Washington, 2 of them.
Giant's
Giant's Blood, it's more of a lottery. If you get it, I probably will win between 9 and 11 additional pool, which equals another Inner Circle.
Yeah.
And more often than not, you actually win that lottery, because most people don't play Giant's Blood. And you have Jake Washington also as combat defense. Just having him block a rush is probably one of the strongest combat defense there is. You just lose the monster phase action, you can use Anthelius to get it back into play, and then you have one rush defended each turn.
If you have Jake, you can get Weighted Walking Stick for him and play Target Vitals.
Yeah, if you have those cards in your deck, that's true.
Yeah.
And you have some other neat, like they might sign corner case. Oh, but you only have 1 or 2 of these. But they work so neatly together, and especially considering you can liquidate really hard and do Asher Tablets, you can actually handpick your combo for that particular game. More often than not, I've actually liquidated, and Giant's Blood is my Ash Heap. I use Anthelius, get it back, and get the 10 pool combo.
Yeah.
Or you can have Metro Underground works really well with Axinia Special. That also works really, really well with Cybele if she gets Enkelkog. Then all of a sudden you have 2 bleeds for 4 each turn if you want.
And Enkelkog also works kind of neat with Guard Dogs and Rat's Warning. Every now and then.
Yeah.
So they can kind of work on their own as well, even if you don't draw both Metro and Enkel. And
the same with Guard Dogs and Rat's Warning. More times than one I've used just to untap Cybele, to don't have to pay that 1 pool for the infernal cost.
Well, yeah, basically we said this before and we'll probably say it again. The biggest strength with this deck is that you're able to pick what you're going to have in your library and on your hand, and thus being able to adapt your deck to the climate of the meta of the game and win. And that's
Exactly. So you have that's the key point. You have the ability to decide how much stealth is needed, because that's otherwise one of the biggest drawbacks of playing stealth bleed is that either you have too much bleed or you have too little bleed, or you have too much stealth or too little stealth. You can't really make that perfect fit towards each prey. But with this deck, you actually do get the perfect fit.
yeah. The more you know about the other decks or other archetypes, the more you can analyze the situation, the better you can utilize this aspect of the deck, which is
Yeah. So yeah, if you don't know the archetypes and if you don't know what you're facing, the deck gets less strong. But if you end up in an easy day 2 finals, for instance, and you know the other 4 players' decks, then it gets ridiculously strong.
yeah. Okay, so are there any like drawbacks of to playing this deck? Maybe Adam can speak a little bit.
Sure. It's a high-cap deck where you invest a lot of pool in your minions, especially before you get to villain them, and Silas Valley also uses your pool quickly. Even though you make good use of it, it uses your pool quickly. So a fast ousting kind of deck can kill this deck around 6 quite easily, especially if you didn't have the luck or unluck to draw a guard dogs or a rat's warning. One misdirection or one mind numb, and then just go for the oust.
Yeah.
On Xenia, of course. This Xenia is a huge part of the defense. Is extremely powerful. Most of the time I think the weakest spot is when Cybele is turned up and before she gets to mid lane. That turn you can oust it, but it's also kind of weak afterwards when you turn up the inner circle and before you get to mid lane that inner circle.
You can see that later on when we're going to talk about the finals. It's very when you
It's a key moment. Every time you bring out a new guy and before you get to villain, most of the time that's your vulnerable spot. And if you get some heavy bleeds up your rear at that particular instance in time, you're kind of screwed. But you're also very weak against boats.
okay.
Considering you, as a standard play, if you play standard with this deck, you go Xenia, Cybele, inner circle. And as you see, there are only 3 inner circles. You could go for 4 inner circles, but this particular instance is only 3. So you're not even sure that the third minion have boats. So you're very sensitive to someone else playing, say, Banishment on Xenia and then power bleeding with Erika. That could also be game over. Or Mind Rape, or stuff like that. Or a lot of parish shifts can also be a problem, because a lot of time you're very high on pool. And you don't have enough time to take that pool and make that pool into vampires.
Yeah.
Would you consider playing delaying tactics? I feel like that could probably be
That's probably worth it. If you remove the banishment, which is one of the changes I actually do want to make to this deck, and play 1 or 2 delaying tactics,
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good direction to go, and go more for by making this a bleed deck rather than a bleed and vote deck, because that's its real strength. Because all the guys except Xenia have plus bleed in some way, and you could pick up the bleed again and again and again.
Yeah. So, how should you react to when you see someone else playing this at the table?
You should make sure everybody knows what kind of deck this is. What does it do? What does it perform? And if some of the other guys don't know the deck, you have to explain it for them and what they do. They bring out this guy, then this guy, then this guy. They play these cards, use villain, use the additional pool to get another vampire into play. I have Golconda and Anthelios, and have a lot of resilience or liquidations. Because throughout a game, you play 3 or 4 liquidations. That's 1 in a circle. You could play 1 Golconda, that's another in a circle. You could play Giant's Blood, that's another in a circle. So all of these monster cards adds up to a lot of pool gain. That you make into new vampires to have an even greater bleed capability. That's step number 1. Making sure everybody knows what they're facing. And then explain that as soon as it brings out the guy, go down to maybe 7 pool, and had 11 pool on a non-villained inner circle, that's the time to punish it.
Yeah. Kick him in the balls.
Yeah, so if you make sure that the girls player only can have Axinia and Cybele in play, it's an okay deck. It will always be a strong deck, but it's nothing that you need to cross-table oust. It's when that third minion hits the table that it gets really troublesome to handle.
Something that I feel the parts that you need to think about as an opponent of this deck is the stealth bleed offense and slow steady like 2 or 3 pool each round bloat. That's like the part that's important in a interaction kind of way with other decks. The Azure tablets, the recursion thing, it's a internal thing in the deck. It's just how it plays. It's actually just smoke and mirrors. It's not something that you should consider when trying to strategize against this deck at a given table. It's gonna play its Azure tablets, and it's gonna get some cards back. It's the way it functions. What you should be focusing on is surviving the stealth bleeding and being able to oust the slow steady bloat together with Exidia.
Yeah, and make sure that the bloat that this deck has never gets to the point where you go up to 15, 16, 70 pool, because when that deck ends up in that region of pool, it will take the risk to bring out the third minion and go down to 7 or 6 pool. Then it's a crucial round. If it survives that round, it will villain, probably play an Azure Tablet of Liquidation, and be back right up at 17 pool again. And it's that round where it risks to get the third minion. Make sure that deck never can take that risk. If it only ends up with Axinia and Cybele, it's a decent stealth bleeder with decent defense, and you can win against it. As long as you yourself play a tier 1 tournament deck. If you play a wacky deck, then you probably just need to obliterate this, if you are even able to with a wacky deck.
Is it the best deck archetype that's out there, Adam?
It's the best stealth bleeder. We have talked about rock, paper, scissors and deck type interactions, but I think this is the best stealth bleeder, if you want to talk about that category of decks.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also one of the things why I love playing this deck in tournaments is that since you have this monster package, and you have the Unleashed Hell's Fury, you have the Jake, you have Gokonda, and Liquidation, you have a lot of lean room to be a retard.
No.
Yeah.
You can play incredibly wrong with this deck, and you can manage somehow to get out of that rut.
Yeah.
If you play some Arika, Freak Dive focus deck, or some really tight Presence Ween or some such, one mistake could be your game. The same with a Paired Shift Turbo. This is just, oh, I made a mistake. Okay, liquidation, villain.
Let me just go conda that for you.
Yeah, but so you have the ability to correct your own mistakes, but you also have an adaptability, as we said, with Azure tablets. You have the ability, oh, this is one of those games. Okay, I'll do Azure tablets for Unleash Hell's Fury, Jake Washington, Majesty. And just, okay, so now I have the combat defense again.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that adaptability makes it a great stealth bleeder, because most other stealth bleeders just stealth and bleed, possibly some nocturnes.
I think that's it for the analysis part, the first part of the show. We will talk about the finals at length during the next part, and you will see how Isaac thought and did and stuff during the final, and how he managed to win. It will be awesome. So stay tuned for the next part. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.